In Sefer Mitzvot, the Rambam lists all 613 commandments and explains them. There are 248 positive commandments, things that need to be done, and 365 negative commandments, things that we are not allowed to do. So the 248 positive commandments correspond to the 248 major body parts, bones, organs, and the 365 negative commandments correspond to 365 gidim, probably best to translate it as nerves, major nerves of the body. Also corresponds to the 365 days of the solar year. So we begin with the first of the positive commandments of things that we do. So mitzvah aleph, the Rambam tells us, is the statement in the Torah, Anochi Hashem Elohecha, that I am the Lord your God. And then the Rambam explains that the Talmud talks about the 613 commandments and how it's derived. Amru Tariag Mitzvot, the 613 commandments, Nemru leMoshe miSinai, were given to Moses at Sinai. And Torah begimatria Tariyah, that the numerical value of the word Torah is 611. And the first two of the 10 commandments, when God said, I am the Lord your God, and you shall have no other gods before me, those the Israelites heard directly from God, mipia gvura, directly from God, and the rest were brought to them by the hand of Moses in the Torah. So the Torah's gematria is 611, plus the two commandments that they heard directly from the voice of God. That gives you 613 commandments. So the first commandment is that I am your God, so to believe in God. And the second one, which is not to have other gods, that's a negative commandment. So here we're talking about just the positive commandments. So the first commandment, the first mitzvah, is to believe in God. The second mitzvah, mitzvah bet, that God is one. Okay, so that He is the first cause, He is one. First mitzvah is to believe in God. The second one is to know that there is only one God and that God is one. Mitzvah gimel, third mitzvah is to love God. Mitzvah number 4 is to fear God. So first we have believing in God. Second we have believing that, or knowing that God is one. The third mitzvah is to love God. The fourth mitzvah is to fear God. The fifth commandment, mitzvah he shetzivanu le'avdo, to serve God. And what does it mean to serve God? The Rambam will tell us that based on what our sages said, v'lashon sifri u'le'avdo zu tefillah. This means to pray. So serving God means praying to God. That is the meaning of avodah. The sixth commandment, Hi shetzivanu leitchaber im chachamim uleitiyached imahem. So it's to cleave to the sages, to learn from the sages, to attain wisdom. Mitzvah zayin, Hi shetzivanu leishava bishmo. So if we make an oath, if you swear, you always swear only in God's name, if necessary. The eighth mitzvah, mitzvah chet, Hi shetzivanu leidamut bo. So to be like God, to resemble God in our ways, ve'alachta bidrachav, to walk in God's ways. Ma hakadosh baruch hu nikra chanun, just as God is called compassionate, afatay chanun, you be compassionate. Ma hakadosh baruch hu nikra rachum, as just as God is called merciful, afatay rachum, you also should be merciful. The ninth mitzvah, mitzvah tet, Hi shetzivanu lekadesh et shmo, is to do Kiddush Hashem, to sanctify God's name. This has to do with in public, where we do positive things, fulfill the mitzvahs publicly, to show what holiness is, to show people what it means to serve God, to stand up for the Torah, to be representatives of the Torah in public. That's the ninth mitzvah. Mitzvah Yud, the 10th mitzvah, Hi shetzivanu likro kriyat shma, arvit v'shachrit, to recite the Shema every morning and every evening. Mitzvah Yud Aleph, Hi shetzivanu lilmod Torah v'lelamda. The 11th mitzvah is to learn Torah and to teach Torah. Mitzvah Yud Bet, Hi shetzivanu le'aniach tefillin. The 12th mitzvah is to put on tefillin, and there's of course the head tefillin and the arm tefillin. So the 12th mitzvah is to put on the head tefillin, and the 13th mitzvah, Mitzvah Yud Gimel, Hi shetzivanu le'aniach tefillin shel yad, is to put on tefillin on the arm. So it's two separate mitzvahs. Mitzvah Yud Daled, Hi shetzivanu le'asot tzitzit. The 14th mitzvah is that we're supposed to have tzitzit, the fringes on the corners of our clothes. Today that can be fulfilled either through the talit, which we wear during our prayers, and as well as the tzitzit katan, the little undergarment, a little square undergarment with the fringes on the corners. Mitzvah Tetvav, Now, the 15th mitzvah, Isha tzivanu le'asot mezuzah, to have a mezuzah on the door. Right? We put a mezuzah on the doorposts, and it has a little paragraph from the Torah, the Shema paragraph. Mitzvah tet zayin, 16, Isha tzivanu le'akil et ha'am beyom hasheni shel Sukkot, b'motzei Shemitah. So once every 7 years, there was a mitzvah of gathering the entire nation in Jerusalem, and the Torah would be read to them, and so on. So it's called Hekhel. It's the great public gathering once in 7 years where the whole nation comes together, everybody. Mitzvah Yud Zayin, Isha tzivanu she'yeh kol melech me'umatenu yoshev bekisei hamlucha kotef sefer Torah. So the 17th mitzvah is that any Jewish king must write for himself a Torah. He has to write an entire Torah scroll with his own hand so that he knows exactly what's in it, so that he rules justly, so that he never forgets God. Mitzvah Yud Chet, Ish et tzivanu she'yeh kol ish mimenu kotef sefer Torah le'atzmo. So the 18th mitzvah is not just for a king to write a Torah, but even for the average Jew, everybody should at some point write a Torah. You can also fulfill this mitzvah by, you can even write a few letters in a Torah. So that's often done today when a Torah is nearing completion by a scribe. Each person can fill in the last, at the end of the book, at the end of the Torah, the last few letters, so that everybody can participate in the mitzvah of actually physically writing a Torah. You can also pay a scribe to write a Torah. Mitzvah Yutet, Isha tzivanu levacho achar achila. So the 19th mitzvah is to say Birkat Hamazon, to say the grace after meals. After you eat, you need to say thank you, just as the verse says in the Torah, Ve'achalta v'savata uverachta et Hashem Elohecha, that you eat and you are fulfilled, satiated, and you shall bless your God. And the 20th mitzvah is to build the temple in Jerusalem, where we can serve God. So those are the first 20 commandments, 20 positive commandments of the 248 positive commandments, and of the 613